Okay, welcome everybody, to those here and those online, to our July meeting. Thank you all very much for coming. We have been joined by Aon as well, and just one night, what time? Do you want to, should we? No.
I think so. Kenneth's not online at the minute.
Okay. So we're just trying to sort the echo out here. Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Brilliant, thank you. Aon, we have some new members from Aon. When Kenneth's here, he'll introduce with our introduction from Aon. So first item on the agenda, item one, apologies. Rachel?
There's no apologies.
Brilliant, everybody's here today, so thank you all for joining us. Item two, declarations of interest. As usual, I'm a member of Powys Pension Fund.
The same for me, Chair.
Arrow and you.
And Hugh.
Good. Okay, thank you. Item three, minutes of last meeting. Can I sign as a true and correct record? They all been circulated. Are you all happy?
Be happy to move, Chair.
Thank you, Arrow. Hugh, thank you. Right, item four, pension board minutes. You've had a copy. Well, our list Rachel sent you on the email. Gerald's quite happy with there isn't much in them, but Chris wants to say a little something that made a comment.
Yes, thanks, Chair. It's just that in the document that has been circulated by the Chair in executive summary, makes reference to an investment risk 007. And I'll come back to that when I present the administration and governance update later on. Just to say that the investment risk register that I've shared with the committee for this meeting doesn't include the update that is recommended in that executive summary. So investment risk 007 just needs to be tweaked slightly to reflect what the board discussed at the last board meeting.
Okay. Yeah, happy with that, Jared?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yes. Are we happy with that report? Just to accept this, really, that's what we can do. Are we happy with that? Thank you. I'm just trying to get the, oh, you put it on the screen.
I'm trying to share it on the screen, so hopefully.
All right, okay. I'm just going down from the agenda now. I just lost my agenda now.
I can bring it up on screen, Chair.
Yeah, no, that's it. I got it now. No, it's yours.
That's me, that is.
That's it, brilliant. Item 5, administration and governance update. Over to Chris.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. This is the usual report that I present at every committee meeting, just to give committee an update on things that are happening in respect to administration and governance within the LDPS and the potential impact it might have on the administration team here. I don't intend to go through it point by point in the interest of time. It's been there for you to have a read, but I will pick out some of the important things that I think committee should be aware of as we go through. So if I start with 2.2, that's in respect of the Scheme Advisory Board looking at the SIPFA guidance on knowledge and skills framework. Now that's important for us because that's actually the framework that we base our training needs assessment on. Committee be aware that every April I send out one of these lengthy forms asking you to just let me know what your thoughts are around your skills in each department when it comes to investment administration governance. The Scheme Advisory Board are looking at that, and they sent out a survey to administering authorities for us to complete. So I worked through that independently to the board chair, and we met for a consensus meeting and then submitted a response to the survey on behalf of Powys, just providing our thoughts on it about how things might change in the future. So as things currently stand, there's no change, but the survey has happened. We might see some change when it comes to the SIPFA training needs assessment framework in future. Just to let you know that we've completed that survey. 2.3 is just to do with some additional clarification around how we might treat some McLeod cases where there's missing data. So it basically just gives administrating authorities some guidance on if you can't find the data, what you need to do. So very helpful and very useful for us. Just letting you know that it is there. 2.4 is as it is. I don't intend to go through it, apart from to let you know that the Scheme Advisory Board have responded to a consultation on changes to cost management, and they broadly support the approach that the government have proposed. 3 touches on employee contribution rates. Again, just there for your information. This is what scheme members are going to be paying depending on how much they earn. The middle column, called the main section, is based on being membership of the full scheme, and the right-hand column is if you're a member of the 50/50 scheme, and the contribution rates are applicable to each of those pay bands on the left. Just for information. 3.2, perhaps I could have titled it a little bit better than I have done, actually. I do apologise for that. But this is essentially a proposal to change the regulations to help with the discrepancy that's come up as a result of the high inflationary environment that we're currently seeing. HMRC revalue dates at the start of tax year, and for the LGPS purposes, we revalue on the 1st of April. So there's a slight misalignment of dates, which they're proposing to try and bring in line. The offshoot or the outcome of that is, at the minute, the way things are, is that people might breach some HMRC annual allowance limits. I don't expect it to be many, because there's misalignment of dates. There's a potential that people's pension benefits might be revalued at different dates and trigger this breach, which might cause some complications around us having to issue pension saving statements, telling members that they might have breached annual allowance limits and thresholds, etc.
I think David's good.
Oh yes, okay.
David?
Thanks, Chair. Chris, on that 3.2, just for clarity, I was reading this second paragraph where the LGA agree in principle with the change but don't agree with the timing.
Yeah.
What exactly is the problem there?
I think it's to do with timing in terms of how we can implement it, in terms of speed. It would be expecting us to be able to do it immediately. I think it might take some time for it to bed in. So I think it's to do around the timings of actually implementing this change.
Okay.
More than anything else, really, David.
Yeah, okay, because the measure makes absolute sense. I was just getting a little bit confused with that.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, David. Just a quick expansion on what annual allowance is. It's essentially the measurement in the growth of a pension savers' pension benefits over the tax year. So what the formula does is it looks at the value of pension benefits at the start of tax year and at the end of the tax year. If a pension's grown in that year by more than the limits, the annual allowance limit, that can potentially trigger a tax charge to the scheme member. So it's important they get this right to make sure that's not the case. In addition to that, the annual allowance actually increased. The Chancellor announced the annual allowance limits are going to increase. So you do actually expect the number of annual allowance people to be caught by the annual allowance to actually reduce. And we're just working through the numbers now to have a look at that. Karina has got a question.
Yes, I'm going to ask very basic questions. Is this just because the inflation has gone up so much that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah.
Thanks, Karina.
Okay, so yeah, it's measuring the value of pension at the start of the year and a value of pension at the end of the tax year. And if the increase has gone above the annual allowance limit, then there's some work that we need to do to tell our scheme members how it might potentially impact them. And there's a communications exercise for us to carry out. And in fact, we have to do this by the 6th of October. So there's a time limit attached to it as well. So just making you aware that some discussions going on about proposed changes to regulations around annual allowance, really. So thank you for your questions. Government Actuary Department has requested data that has been sent, and one that might interest the committee actually is this amendment to regulations about new LGPS employers in Wales. The regulations were amended recently to include these new joint committees that have been created in Wales as employers within the LGPS regulations. And what that does is that enables any employees of these 4 new committees you see in front of you, they'll be eligible to join the local government pension scheme. And the impact on Powys is that Powys have been chosen as the administering authority for the Mid Wales Corporate Joint Committee. So whilst they're not employing anybody at this point in time, should they start to employ people directly in future, they will have access to the LGPS, and that will be via the Powys Fund. Section 4 is just a very brief update from the pensions regulator. You've got a link to their corporate plan that they published recently. I've tried to summarise it within the bullet points on the screen in front of you now. I think the key one for committee to be aware of actually leads into section 5 about pensions dashboards. Committee will have heard me talking about pensions dashboards for some time actually. And just a quick refresher is that this is essentially an online portal where a pension saver is able to log into one place with one login and access all their pension information in one place. This is to help them better plan for retirement and their pension saving. We've been working behind the scenes on assessing our data quality to make sure that when it goes live, our data is of a sufficient quality that when the system requests this information from us, that it's available and is accurate. So we've already started working on that. But the big notification really is that there's actually been a delay announced. So in March, we were told that there's been a delay in the actual go live date that we're expected to actually be ready for. I think it's been pushed back to October 24, actually. What that does give us more time to work on the data. And it does not mean that we're going to stop this exercise. We are going to continue on the data cleansing exercise, and we have a data improvement plan, as you'll know, as well. So it just gives us a little bit more time to work on our data ahead of any go live date. But it's just let you know that it is still happening. It's just moved down the road a little bit in terms of time. And that section is quite heavily focused on the pensions dashboard. So the next one I wanted to bring to committee's attention is about the risk register. Committee be aware that I've been working with the pensions board over the past 12 months to do deeper dives into each of the risk pillars. And they're in front of you: the administration risk register, the governance risk register, and the investment risk register. Pension board met to go through the investment risk register in detail in early June, 12th of June, and essentially identified that the risks were all appropriate, but some of the description and the wording around some of the controls and the actual risks themselves needed updating. They were right to be there, but they just needed to be brought forward, particularly in respect of the relationship with the Wales Pension Partnership. That's moved on over 5 years when some of these risks were first identified. So quite a lot of work has gone into making sure that there's enough detail in the investment pillar to cover the controls and the mitigations, just so it's clear how we'll treat these risks and what we'll do to monitor them. So the risk register is presented as an appendix. Hopefully you've had the chance to go through it. But I just have one comment about investment risk 007. The risk register that's shared actually has a further comment from the board, which is included within the board's board chair's executive summary. I just need to strengthen the wording on that one a little bit. So investment risk 007 is appropriate. It just has a little bit further strengthening of the wording, which you haven't seen in the one that's presented to you. So if committee are happy to approve the risk register, I will just strengthen that wording based on the board's recommendation as well, as you can see in the investment.
Adam wants to have a word.
Yeah, in the chair's executive summary. Adam, yeah.
Adam.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Chris. It maybe I haven't spotted it in going through the risk register, but in reading some of the later papers, particularly I'm going to talk about climate change, how much I haven't spotted inside the risk register something that deals with the risks attached to climate change, which is raised later. Have I simply missed it, Chris? And am I looking in the wrong place, and can you point me at it, or is it something we need to pay attention to in a later revision of our risk register?
I can't remember all the risks off the top of my head, Adam. We do have over 30.
I went through the investment risks and couldn't spot one that was beginning to acknowledge the risks that come on the back of climate change, because quite clearly later when we talk about the Aon report.
Absolutely. Okay, leave that one with me then. I'll check to see if it's either one of the governance ones, perhaps, around climate change. I'm almost certain we've discussed it and picked it up somewhere, but leave that one with me and I'll come back to you to address it if that's okay, Adam.
Yeah, I'll keep looking. Thanks.
Okay, David.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief point. I'm looking at some of these risks, and the last review was back in 2020. That might be appropriate in some cases, but I'm looking at investment risk 0006, which refers to pay and price inflation significantly more than anticipated. When you consider the last 12 months, how volatile pay and price inflation has been, I'd have thought that would have been reviewed more recently.
It's an error, David. I've raised this with the risk register team, and what it's doing is it's picking up the date of the first review, not the last review. So
okay.
It is something we're aware of, and I'm trying to get them to rectify that because it is very confusing. But yeah, I can
great.
assure you they are regular reviews.
Right. Yeah, I'm reassured. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that legacy hand, Adam? Okay, thanks.
I think it is, yeah. Okay. Thanks. So the risk register presented today is the investment pillar. So I'm looking for approval from committee on it in its current form, obviously noting Adam's comment. We can always add in a risk specific to that should it not be there. And the comment from the executive summary from the board chair on investment risk 007, I'll just strengthen that wording slightly. If committee are happy to approve it as it is, I can make those amendments and get it published.
Are you happy with that, Adam and everybody, to approve this report?
I do, but these are admin risks, Chris, that this refers to, isn't it?
No, it's the investment risk. We have been through the admin, so hopefully you've got all the risk registers attached. To
Yes,
you,
yes,
the
yes.
admin, governance, and
Yeah.
investment. This is specifically looking for approval on the investment risk because we've already had approval on the administration and
Yeah.
governance previously.
Okay, okay.
Are you happy to approve?
Approve.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, everyone. And then the section 7 focuses on the breaches register. Again, this is something that I work very closely with the board on reviewing and monitoring. There's no new risks or breaches been identified. So for the two old favourites around refund timescales and communication around deferreds, they've been on there, the long-standing, they have been on there for a while. We are looking at them again. Specifically in terms of the deferred one, there's not much we can do about the refund breach because that is in the legislation and it is what it is. But in terms of the deferred breaches, that could be considered in terms of numbers and whatnot. So that's being reviewed. And we are also doing more work with the board on employer performance, and employers have statutory obligations in terms of timescales to send the fund data at appropriate times. We're looking into that a little bit more detail now, and we'll update you accordingly as things progress. Work progresses on that one. But as things stand for this report, no new breaches, and it's just being presented for your information and to let you know that's the case.
No questions? No, thank you.
So that was it really, Chair. So thank you for the approval of the investment risk register. I will amend those wordings and recirculate it, and then we can get that published. And then that is completed the review of the 3 pillars. Obviously, I take Adam's comment on board, and we'll consider that one as well. And I can bring that forward to a next meeting to get it inserted appropriately. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So, I said, do you have to note this rest of it? No.
And the rest is just for noting for information. Yeah.
Are we happy to note the rest of the report? Thank you. Okay then. Item 6. Administration strategy statement review. That's it.
That's me again.
Chris again.
Thank
Would
you,
you,
Chair.
Chris?
Thank you. This has been a very light touch, this one. Just for background, this is something that we were required to produce under regulation. And what this document sets out to do is let the employers know what we expect of them and what they can expect of us in terms of their responsibilities and timescales and whatnot. Existing committee members will have seen this previously because they've approved it previously, and the newer committee members, this might be the first time you've seen it, but essentially it's a document that helps employers understand their responsibilities and our responsibilities towards them as well. So the document sets out how we'll communicate, how we'll train, timescales that they have to provide information to us by, and if that doesn't happen, what we'll do as a fund to help them with that. And ultimately, should that continue to fail, then the process will go through to escalate. And ultimately, if employers continue to fail to deliver what we need them to, it can end up being a reportable breach and then being reported to the regulator. So we would want to work with them before that it gets to that stage. And this document sets out what we'll do to try and help them with regards to any training or any needs they might have with regards to doing what they need to do. The update came about because it was review time. The document says it be reviewed periodically, so it was time to be periodically reviewed. And the updates are very, very slight, just in terms of grammar, making sure all the hyperlinks are up to date and that the procedure that we follow is still appropriate. So no new content's gone in there, apart from, as I say, some grammar and some slight amendments. So hopefully you've had the chance to read it. I'm happy to take any comments on it at all, but I'm looking for approval if committee are happy with the reviewed, revised administration strategy document. Oh, actually, and one other comment is one of the appendixes at the end of the document just shows the key performance indicators that we use in terms of timescales. I'm scrolling frantically down to it now. This is useful because this sets out how we're going to be monitoring our key performance indicators. So I will get there eventually once I've gone past all the regulation parts. It's just the table at the end here. This one here. This shows how our legal requirements for issuing these bits of information to our scheme members, and we will use this as a basis for our key performance indicators. So in the future, committee will get a table that shows our performance against these timescales here. So this is in there for information. Employers know their timescales. This is our timescales for our performance standards as well. So I just wanted to make committee aware of that in case you hadn't got down to Appendix 2. This is what we're going to use for our KPI reporting going forward.
Okay. Any questions? Thanks, Chris. Everybody can hear me, can they? It comes across my screen. I'm muted.
I can hear you, Chair.
Oh, sorry.
No, I can
We
hear you,
can hear you.
Peter.
All right,
I
it
can
just
hear
come
you.
across my screen. You're muted. So, okay, can I ask for approval, please? Thank you.
Approval.
Thanks, Adam.
Yeah.
I'm sure I heard you in the background there. So,
Yeah.
thank you. Item 7 is overpayment policy. Over to Chris again.
Yeah,
Thank you, Chair. Again, this is presented today in revised format. It has been approved previously, and the timing was right for us to carry out a review on the overpayment policy. Again, very light touch has been applied to this, apart from one specific section, which is to do with the amounts for write-off. So other than being some slight grammatical updates and wording, the big change, well, the major change to the document is to do with this overpayment limit write-off here. So in the prior version, the automatic write-off limits for any overpayments were, as you can see on the left. We've just updated them to reflect the council's write-off policy when it comes to overpayments or debts. We've updated to reflect that and to be in line with some of the other pension funds. So what that's done is that's given the officers some more discretion with regards to overpayment and write-off limits. And you can see the various limits in the bottom table as to what they've gone up to. Previously, they were quite low. They were quite low, which would have meant quite a lot of involvement potentially for portfolio holder finance. So those limits have been increased now in line with the council's debt write-off values as well. So that's the big change to the document, and that's the one that we need committee to be comfortable with for approval. But that's if committee are happy with those limits, then they'll go in the policy and they will be made public.
Errol?
Yeah, just a couple. Well, the first question is, how many of these do we have roughly every year or in the past?
Very small numbers, thankfully. And they're usually under the £100 limit. It's to do with, usually they come about because of death of pensioners. And it's not seen as being financially viable to request these limits. But in terms of numbers, ones that get to portfolio hold for finance, very few. In fact, David probably hasn't seen any since he's been in post. So I don't think in terms of numbers, it's a significant number.
Okay. And then the other question, when you do register a death with a registrar, they offer you the service where they'll contact the authority and what have you.
Yeah.
And is sort of, if Powis is advised, is it sort of circulated between every department, or are they pension, got to be advised separately?
I don't know if it goes to every department, Errol, but I can tell you that we do use the TELUS One system, so pensions are notified. I think there's a requirement when a death is registered for the individual to say they're happy for that to happen.
Yeah.
So I think they still can say we don't need to use the TELUS One system, but if they do, we are notified electronically and we will act on that. And obviously, because we use the Powis payroll to provide our pensioner payroll, that's one way that Powis could also be notified, I guess. Yeah. But I can't answer to the departments, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you,
Adam? Thanks, Errol. Adam?
Thank you, Chair. Well, part of my question has just been answered about the number of times these get triggered. And actually, I'm really just seeking comfort here. I don't think we have a problem with the in-principle numbers thresholds. It's a scale of change from the previous to the new. And we've introduced another person, which is the Pensions Administration Manager. So what was previously deemed to be only signed offable by Head of Finance in Section 151 is now signed off by somebody called Pensions Administration Manager.
Yeah.
So I suppose I'm asking to go down. We have Section 151, Jane, and actually we've got I think we've got David with us, haven't we? But that's a reassurance that this is it. I suppose the question is number one, the reassurance this is falling in line with other council protocols, and levels, and not from those who do it elsewhere. And B, probably just a quick explanation about why the previous write-off thresholds have been so far removed from standard council practice? Because it's a big change.
It is. If I could pick up on the amount one, I think that's long-standing. I think it's been at those amounts for some considerable time. Certainly as long as I've probably been in pensions, which is 20 odd years, they've been at those amounts. And I think what we've seen elsewhere is other funds have gradually been increasing those, and we haven't done that. So I think what's probably happened is you've probably seen a big jump from where it started to where it is now. Had it been gradual, it might not have been so noticeable.
Yeah.
It's in line with what we see other pension funds doing, particularly around Wales. And perhaps Jane could come in on the being in line with the council's policy. But I did run this by the Section 151 officer before I presented it to you as well. So I hope that should give you some comfort as well.
Just before Jane, Jared's been had his hand up. Do you want to come in or after Jane?
I'll follow Jane.
Okay, over to you, Jane.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think Chris has said everything that I was going to pick up on. And yes, these do. We have reviewed the council's constitution and the financial regulations within the council recently. And these are the thresholds that we use there. But as Chris said, I don't think these have been updated for some time. And I think even for myself, in terms of authorising previously, I've seen very, very few. I can't recall I haven't seen one at the moment. So there may have been through my time being in post, but they are very rare.
Okay.
Thanks, Jane. Jared?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. In view of the comments from the members of the committee, perhaps it might be worth considering an annual summary.
Yeah.
Of write-offs.
I think we do keep a
for
list.
transparency.
Yeah, I think we do keep a list of write-offs as well. So I'm pretty sure that's something I could lay my hand on and share.
Perhaps to report to committee.
Yeah, I can do an annual report to committee perhaps. Yeah.
I think that'll be a good way forward. So thank you, Jared.
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, just to confirm, Chair, as Chris said, I've been in post over 12 months now, and I haven't signed off any write-offs. And with a limit there of 25,000, I wouldn't expect to be quite frank. I think there'd have to be something significantly wrong, I'd have thought, if we've got an overpayment of £25,000.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to add was that my understanding was that this is pretty much in line with the County Council's debt write-off limits. But I think Jane has just confirmed that as well. Thanks.
Thank you both.
David. Okay then. So do you want to go for approval?
Yes. If
Are you happy to approve now, members?
Happy.
Thank you, Adam. Seconder, please.
Yeah, happy Chair, second.
Thanks, Errol. Okay, thank you all. Okay then, item 8. Another one of Chris. WPP update on a business plan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So there's two things to this report. One is for information, and one is looking for committee to agree the proposed Wales Pension Partnership WPP business plan. Well, perhaps we'll come on to that. So the first bit for information is, I think this is the second time we've seen the information delivered in this format. There's been some discussion around Wales about information being released to committees at the same time, at the same level. I think what's happened prior to this is that we've all been collating our own individual reports locally, sharing information with committee that we thought was appropriate. So what the WPP have done, they've worked with us to do this, is to arrive at a consistent pack. So these documents that are attached to this report are the ones that WPP provide to us, that are then disseminated down to each individual committee. So it's the second time it's been delivered in this format, so hopefully you'll find that helpful. But the thinking behind it is essentially for consistency and delivery of message from the Wales Pension Partnership. So there's various things that have been provided, and they're fairly lengthy, so I don't intend to go through them line by line. Hopefully you'll have the chance to read them and let me know if there's any questions. But the key document as part of this pack is the business plan. Now, that was presented to the Joint Governance Committee at the end of March. So moving on to item 3 here. And as part of the governance arrangements of the WPP, it's requested that is approved locally by each of the 8 committees within Wales as well. I'm aware it's been through a couple of committees already and been approved, and we're about midway through the pack. There are a few after us as well. So what the WPP business plan is intended to do is just to try and identify how the WPP works. So bullet point 1 there, the background and the governance, the objectives of the next 3 years, financial implications of trying to achieve those objectives, and try and summarize what they want to do in terms of investment and performance as well. So it's a fundamental document. It has been approved previously. This is just the
Mhm.
updated version that needs local approval. So it is presented today for committee's approval, hopefully. And if so, I can then get back to WPP to let them know that they can put a tick in the Powys box in terms of agreeing the business plan going forward. So I wasn't going to go through it. I'm happy to pick up any questions on it, although it has been prepared by the WPP, not myself. I will have fed into it at some point throughout the production, but it's a WPP document, not a Powys document. So hopefully you've had the chance to read it, and I'm happy to approve that.
Yes, Chair is Hugh. Can I add some clarification? There's reference to the link group, and it is mentioned elsewhere as well. And what is our relationship with the link group? Because it's in negotiation with the Waystone Group in respect to the sale of the whole of its fund solution. What's behind that?
Over to you, Chris.
Yeah,
So me
thank you,
and Chris
Chair.
have been away this week. We've been with some of the WPP members. It's been discussed. We've been with the LAPF Investment Strategy Forum down in Watford this week. This has been, sorry, Gerard.
This may be an item for part 2.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I think we need to go into exempt time, Hugh.
Yeah, it is mentioned later on. I appreciate and I'm willing for that. It's just that, okay, I leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh. So yes, that aside, it's really if committee are happy to approve the business plan.
Adam's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you again, Chair. So just inside the business plan, and I appreciate this has been written from elsewhere. I'm sat on page 123 of the agenda pack. So in the green pages that are the business plan, it's page 123.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you get there, I'm looking at the page that talks about objectives.
I'm getting there.
Yeah.
114. Yeah, here we go.
That's all right. It's a long document.
Making me dizzy watching the screen.
Yeah, look away from it. I'll tell you when I get there. There we are. We're there now. Yes.
Okay, so I really, so it lists, has formulated a list of primary objectives, and these can be summarized as, and it lists 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bullet points. You guess where I'm going. Bullet point 6 is to embed the delivery of long-term sustainable investment outcomes into decision making, which broadly speaking is a welcome one. I suppose the point I wanted to make is it's potentially also quite a loose statement, because I have embedded it. It's something to do with long-term. Long-term is long-term, doesn't necessarily express the degree of urgency. So I wondered whether, even if it's about sort of signing it off or sending it back with a comment, adding to that, because it felt to me that it should also include something along the lines of, so to embed the delivery of long-term sustainable investment outcomes, and it's about meeting the needs of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, because it then ties it to the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, which is about acting now, acting collaboratively, acting for our future generations, and to match the Welsh Government policies and timetable around net zero and biodiversity net gain, because actually there are some quite clear policies from WG coming through that we are obligated to pay attention to
as a council. Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think this reflects either that Wellbeing Future Generations Act sufficiently, or indeed those policies and mandates coming through from WG correctly. And it felt to me that they should appear as part of the objectives, not a new one. It would sit inside of this. I just wonder how we feed that back, because obviously we are one commentary on a business plan that has been produced by all pension funds across Wales. So our room for influence on this is quite limited. How we reported that back.
Yeah, we can do that. A couple of points on that one, Adam, if that's okay. The policies you're talking about are for those on councils, not directly applicable to pension funds. They do exist separately. But I completely take your point about how we can stronger reflect that within this bullet point. So that's something I can take away and discuss with them. I think as well, the challenge for the WPP is to keep this fairly high level, because as the 8 funds, we do have different approaches to try and achieve this as well. So I think it's a comment I can take back to them. I think about how we can word this for the next time, perhaps. but it's important that we understand that perhaps some of the things being imposed on the council is not necessarily the same as the pension funds. So I can see Jane's hand up there, so whether she wants to comment on that at all, but that's my point on that. That's all.
Just Jane, do you want to come in now?
Yeah, only briefly. I mean, Chris is accurate in terms of what he said. I think it's important to note, though, there is a whole host of other documents that support this. You know, this is very high level, as Chris said. There is a lot more detail in terms of responsible investment policy and all of those other policies that give you a lot more meat on the bones, if you like, in terms of those aspects as well. So it's being mindful of that. But of course, we can take that back and feed that through to the pension partnership as feedback from the committee. That's no problem at all.
I'll definitely do that, Adam, just to give you that comfort as well. I would definitely speak to the WPP about the wording around that and whether we can tighten that up. It does feed potentially quite nicely into the item that follows afterwards, actually, about sustainable equity sub fund. But I think
No,
for this,
I suppose my signing off comment is, and I take your point, Jane, that there's a whole load of stuff that reinforces this. But if you're going to summarise the objectives, the objectives for me miss the issue of pace and scale and urgency. So something shorter that would reflect that urgency.
Yeah.
And I'll drop that text into the chat, but obviously it's not it won't find its way this time, so I'm happy to approve subject to that comment going forward.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, obviously I can't get this document amended, Adam, but I can certainly ask them to consider it for the next time. Yeah, thanks.
You're happy? Chris will take it back to WPP.
Yeah.
Okay. Is this for approval?
Yes,
Yeah, it's
please.
a good document, I think.
Yeah. Thank you. So can I have approval, please? Hugh, thank you. Seconder.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you. Are we happy? I take you approve it by your silence. Thank you. Okay, item 9. Are we happy going to accept item?
Sorry, Chair, just one more item, which I think.
Oh,
committee
sorry,
needs to-
missed that.
Yeah, it's actually quite a pleasing item. So it's just if you're
Okay.
happy for me to
Yeah.
suspend that item for a little bit longer, that'd be okay.
Sorry.
No, that's not. Sorry, so I should have made that clear. So yeah, just a bit of good news really in terms of what the WPP have been up to. So I think it's 0.5
I'm
on.
down to bottom.
Yeah, I could have structured the report better. I'll take the blame on that. Apologies.
I was too keen.
Point 4 is about the launch of the Sustainable Global Active Equity Sub Fund. Been working on this for quite some time to try and get a fund launched at WPP, which is trying to achieve some sustainable goals. This happened towards the end of June. Work is still going on transferring funds over, and it's launching with 1.2 billion, which I think is demonstrating how serious the Wales Pension Partnership and the Welsh Fund are taking this sort of investment. So it's pleasing to see this one actually being launched. It's out there. We are, as a fund, participating within it as well. We're moving our global equities across to it in 2 tranches, which we'll come on to later on in the agenda as one of the updates from Aon. But just from my point of view, it's just pleasing to see that's happened, and it's there for your information.
It's very encouraging. There's good vibes about it this week when we were with the WPP members. As you see, all 8 funds have invested in it, so it's very positive. Adam.
Only to really say, really welcome to see it. So, when I went through, I highlighted it with the point of saying, well done, crack on.
No,
More of it, please.
Very good. That was good. Yeah, very good feeling in the.
It's a real positive step. Yeah.
Yeah, very positive. I don't think the word positive. Thank you. So
That's it, Chair. Yeah.
okay, you're happy to approve the plan? I think we have sort of approved it. Happy again, Hugh and Adam?
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm happy, Chair.
Everybody. Thank you. Okay, item 9. Going to exempt item, excluding the press and public. Are we happy?
Happy
You
to
move
move,
it,
Chair.
please? Thank you. Oh. Rachel, are we out?